Hi guys, welcome to the TJS Bass channel. Today I'm going to run you through some of the essential things to be bringing when you're going to a pit gig as a bass player. So over the next few weeks I'm going to be going on tour with 2 shows in the UK, Forever Dusty and Life Could Be a Dream, and I'll put links to both of those in the description below. So I thought it would be a good time to go through the things that I'm going to be taking on tour. So first off, and probably most important, is the bass itself. A lot of the guys up in London are using overwater basses in the UK, and I know a lot of the guys in the US use Sadowski. This is a Sadowski jazz bass. Generally a lot of the players that are playing musicals and theatre gigs are using the jazz bass. These guys are often using a 5-string model. This is obviously only a 4-string, but that really depends on the musical you've been called for. If you get a chance to look at the score, often you can see whether or not that 5-string is going to be required. But generally, if you're turning up to a gig and you're not sure, I would always make sure I bring a 5-string. It normally helps if you've got a bass that's got active electronics, and make sure that it's well shielded, because you never know what the lighting and other bits and pieces in a theatre could do to your tone. Obviously, being an active bass, you need to make sure you bring a spare set of batteries. Whilst on the topic of basses, you might want to think about bringing something that's in the more traditional flavour. Typically, a Fender Jazz or Precision will fit into most mixes. It's probably what's going to be expected by the MD on the gig. If it's a show with a particular band or artist as the story, so something like the Motown musical, you might want to choose to use a Precision with flat wounds, or something that really reflects the original vibe of that music. But other than that, a jazz or a Precision or a PJ setup like this Yamaha BB5000 will probably do the job. Once you've got the bass, you also need to remember to make sure that you've got some spare strings, just in case, as ever, along with the battery. The next part of the signal chain for me is the Line 6 Helix. Those of you who see my channel before know that I use quite a lot of Yamaha gear, and Line 6 is owned by Yamaha. I think it's really important to have things that are really versatile on these kind of gigs, particularly if you've never seen the score before and you don't really know what you're coming into. Quite often there might be a request for an effect or a particular style, and having something like this on hand, which has got many amp models, many effects pedals, options for EQ, can really help make sure that you produce an authentic recreation of the musical, which is all that people are there to see. The other reason for bringing this is it allows you to run a direct out signal with an amp simulator, which is helpful because sometimes in these musicals you might be asked to just go without any amp, which helps everybody in terms of mix out front. And with that in mind, I often bring a pair of headphones as well. So these are the Bear Dynamics with a 1/4-inch jack, because quite often you're going to be asked to use that input rather than the smaller 3.5mm. If you don't have something like the Helix or just any multi-effects really, it's just a really useful thing to have for this kind of gig. The second best thing you can bring is probably something like this, which is the VT Bass DI, or just any Sans amp really. They're all made by the same guy as Tech 21, but I know you can get versions of these by Behringer and such like that are pretty cheap and cost effective. And that's also going to be useful. I've been asked a number of times just to DI straight out. And next you want to make sure you've got a tuner as well. So that's critical, and either a tuner or a clip-on tuner and a volume pedal or something, because you want to have some way of being able to mute the signal, just for those points in the musical where you aren't playing and there's dialogue or whatever. You want to make sure you don't ruin the show by bumping your strings or something like that, which has been done a few times, trust me. After those, you probably want to think about bringing an amplifier. You never know whether it will be a silent gig or one where you need some monitoring in the pit. So I bring a Class D head, so in this case the Mark Bass LMT 500, and I also bring one of my Bareface cabs as ever. In this instance here I've got the Bareface Super Midget, but quite often for these kind of pit gigs I'll actually bring the Bareface 110, which is an even smaller cab, and even then I'm still quite often asked to turn down because they really don't want that much volume in the pit. You want some kind of monitoring that's small, fairly light, so you can get it to the gig, but you don't need it to be any massive rig for a pit gig. They're going to ask you to turn it down as little as possible anyway, if they are using amps. So you've got all those. You need to make sure you've got the right cables to hook them all up. So your speak-on cable for the cab and head, the IEC power lead, and all the leads you need for pedals and what have you. You want to make sure you've got some high quality jack leads. So in this instance I use the Planet Waves cables, and I choose to use the shorter ones for these kind of gigs because pits quite often end up becoming a bit of a mess of cables. You don't want to be trying to fight your way around a load of cables to find yours. So a shorter cable, and make sure you kind of lay it over the top of whatever other cables have been put down. Just makes it easier in case something does go wrong. If you end up with crackles and pops, it's easy to replace. And you want to make sure you've got at least 2 of those, if not more. On the same topic, you want to make sure you bring an extension of some kind. Just because you never know, you may end up only having one plug, yet you've got a number of things to plug in. So make sure you've got one of those with you as well. After that, for me, it's the iPad. So a lot of scores now, particularly for the recent shows I've done, have come through as PDFs, and I read the show from my iPad. I use the app 4Score, and I use that in conjunction with the Air Turn Ped, which is a pedal to turn the pages. For me, I find it almost essential to have a page turner. I know you can. I think you can now get models that are a lot cheaper than this one. I'll try and put some of those in the link below. For me, I find the Air Turn Ped almost essential because you never know how many pages you might have to turn back in a score, and to have to swipe that many pages quite often ends up going wrong. With 4Score, in order to turn page, you just tap on the edge, like so. But that still makes it quite difficult to make sure you get it right while you're trying to play. So once you bring an iPad, you also need to make sure that you bring a charger, preferably one with a longer lead than this, because you never know how far you're going to have to drag it out to. But once you've got technology involved in your score, you need to make sure that you've got a backup. Now if you're not on an electronic score, you want to make sure you bring one of these. But yeah, bring a pencil. Hopefully this video has been of use to you. Let me know in the comments if I've missed anything, if you think there's something essential that I haven't already covered. That'd be good to know, and it'll probably help me remember before I go on tour. So I think I'll add this as a bit of a coda to the end of the video. But one of the things I've completely forgotten to mention is a music stand, an essential piece of gear. Without it, you've got no hope. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe, leave a comment below, and hopefully I'll see you soon.